The Bryan Police Department's mental health unit has been operating for about 4 months now. Tonight, we're checking in to see how it's making an impact in Brazos County. And honeybees, you either hate them or you love them. Either way, A&M experts say they need to be protected. We'll explain why coming up. Your KRHD News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us and happy Friday. I'm Naya Gonzalez. 3 Bryan police officers are now equipped to de-escalate situations that could lead to violent confrontation during a mental health call. KRHD News reporter Hannah King shares how the department is now meeting community needs.
A dispatch will be en route.
Bryan PD is taking a new approach to respond to mental health emergencies, putting residents at ease.
The more that they are educated on the issue, the better they can handle it. So I'm with it. I think it's great.
Since April of this year, Bryan PD has had a mental health unit responding to mental health calls.
I suffer from mental illness. I have PTSD, major anxiety, major depression.
Lifelong Bryan resident Londi Campbell feels a lot better knowing this new unit is on her side.
So when the police come out, if they have knowledge on mental health, they can help us instead of just taking us straight to jail. You know, they can try to diffuse the problem.
Mental illness is nothing new to America. And obviously, anytime you turn on the news nationally or locally, you see some kind of encounter typically between law enforcement and a mental health consumer.
Officer Taylor says the 3 on the job have the qualifications and are passionate about the role.
I mean, that was one of the key deciding factors in who they were going to pick. There were multiple officers that applied for this position within the department, but the 3 we picked were the 3 that obviously had the most drive and desire to actually get out and help people.
BPD says across the country there has been a significant increase in the awareness of law enforcement interactions with people suffering from mental illness, interactions with the potential to turn violent.
The mental health unit doesn't wear a full police uniform. They have kind of a more street look approach that's a little less intimidating for anybody really, and it doesn't necessarily make them look like a cop or an authoritative figure.
Officers now trained to further their de-escalation techniques and recognize how to communicate with someone in crisis. The goal to provide residents the resources they need.
So instead of taking these people to jail, somebody in crisis or one of these mental health consumers, we can find ways to keep them out of the jail system and find them the mental help that they need.
Leaving those in the mental health industry thankful for this new approach.
Police officers should be out here fighting crime, not fighting mental health. And that really means a lot to me that they see the need.
The mental health unit has responded to nearly 120 calls for service involving a mental health emergency since it began just 3 months ago. They have also completed around 70 home visits and nearly 200 follow-up phone contacts. In Bryan, Hannah King, KRHD News.
The Bryan Police Department says it started the mental health unit, quote, in an effort to meet community needs in April of this year. The department says officers get extensive training and are specifically equipped to de-escalate situations to prevent violent confrontations. BPD says it hopes to reduce the number of police interactions with people experiencing an episode during a mental health call by taking a proactive approach. The Bryan Police Department says there are 3 trained full-time officers committed to the mental health unit. Since those 3 officers can't work 24/7, 30 additional officers have also gone through training. In just the last 4 months, the mental health unit has responded to 112 mental health related calls, as well as 73 home visits and 191 follow-up calls. Social media apps taking extra steps to protect teens. A Facebook exec speaking only to 25 News about the new safety protocols. Starting this week, if someone who's under 16 years old creates a Facebook or Instagram account, those accounts will automatically be private. Only the people who they accept as a friend will be able to see what they post.
So we certainly want parents to know that we are constantly monitoring account settings and privacy and interactions on the platform. We certainly want to make it safe.
Facebook and Instagram now have new technology that prevents suspicious accounts from searching for a teen's account or from seeing them in the pages suggested for you. Well, it's official. The Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners will become members of the SEC. The 14 current members of the group voting unanimously to add the 2 teams. Under the agreement, both Texas and Oklahoma would be part of a 16-team Southeastern Conference powerhouse. For now, though, the agreement is set to start in 2025. The Board of Regents for both schools held a meeting this morning to formally accept the offer. New tonight, the CEO of Allaport Chemical Plant is speaking out tonight after an acid leak turned deadly Tuesday. According to reporting by the Houston Chronicle, Bob Patel said the company sends its deepest condolences to the families of 2 men killed, as well as 30 other workers hurt in the accident. Patel made the remarks during an earnings call, also reporting over $2 billion for the company's Q2 earnings. Montgomery County officials say animal abuse cases have spiked during the pandemic, and things have gotten so bad they're now creating a new animal abuse unit to fight it. The Precinct 2 constable says animal abuse is surging across many parts of Texas, leading to more violent crimes against children and other victims. Officials say the new unit will also address dog and cockfighting, a growing problem in the area. Pollinators like honeybees are so important when it comes to agriculture. Experts at Texas A&M say we need to protect them. So we have a list of ways to do just that. Some of the best ways to help the honeybee population include planting pollinator-friendly gardens, mowing your lawn less often. Also, you may consider using fewer pesticides. That's been shown to help the honeybee population. Experts say the economic value of honeybees to the U.S. ag industry is estimated to be in the billions.
Honeybees in the U.S. alone contribute over $15 billion annually to our economy through pollination services, so whatever plants they're pollinating. And so that accounts for about pollination of about 30% or about a third of the agricultural crops and the food that we consume on a daily basis.
In recent years, honeybee populations in the U.S. have decreased due to factors like urbanization, poor nutrition, and climate change.
Today, the USDA extended its eviction moratorium for homeowners until the end of September. But this only applies to homeowners of properties financed or guaranteed by the agency. Now, millions of other Americans could soon be without a home. The CDC's eviction moratorium is set to expire tomorrow, originally put in place almost a year ago. A legal expert that we talked with says, don't be surprised if you immediately get notices from your landlord or the bank.
Especially landlords will be super aggressive. Remember, they haven't been paid for quite a while and they're looking to be paid.
The good news is states received $46 billion in rental assistance from the last COVID relief deal that will continue to be distributed. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau just put out a new tool this week to help connect people to the money. Now, there are also some other steps that renters facing eviction can take.
It's also my suggestion to contact the local bar association and local law schools. They often have what's called housing clinics and housing help assistance, and that may be a good resource for you to learn about the programs, find out what your rights are, and also help you apply for funds.
She says a big key is keeping all of this information organized, especially as you start receiving notices in the mail with scammers looking to take advantage.
It could contain information in it that has personal identifications in it, like the amount of debt that you owe, who your bank is. Information that's easily gotten either online or through credit bureaus can be bought. So remember, just because it looks official doesn't necessarily mean that it is.
Now, if you get any phone calls, she says, remember not to volunteer any personal information. The best thing to do is hang up and call your landlord, leasing agency, or loan provider directly. From the Great Plains to the Florida coast, no matter where you call home, you can see by taking a look at this map that every state has some kind of flood risk. 13 million Americans live in flood zones, and Chris Conti shows us some major changes coming to FEMA's flood insurance program that could impact just how much you pay.
The tide comes in, the tide goes out. Such is life by the sea. A fog of uncertainty that often hangs heavy over coastal communities nationwide.
You're at the edge of the earth. You're in God's country. The rules are very, very, very different.
Over the years, Gordon Peabody has learned to respect the water.
Well, a surge will take you even over my hand.
As a coastal consultant, he's helped develop innovative techniques for protecting property owners. Ideas like this wall of pylons that diverts waves when they come in.
The wave energy comes in, and then it's divided. Some of it goes that way, and some of it goes that way.
The shorelines that Gordon walks are here in Provincetown, Massachusetts. Like many communities, they've seen their share of floods, from hurricanes to rising sea levels. As a result, FEMA has paid out hundreds of millions of dollars in flood insurance claims to property owners. The money pays for things like dune restoration and raising homes out of harm's way.
It helps the property owners with their insurance because they're going to be safe, but it totally transforms neighborhoods.
But the rates that people across the country pay for flood insurance are changing. FEMA has rebranded their flood insurance program, calling it Risk Rating 2.0. Insurance rates are now based on factors like a homeowner's distance to the water, types of flood exposure, and the cost of replacing a building. The higher a building's cost, the more expensive the premium, and vice versa. It's not just coastal communities impacted by these changes. Some 13 million Americans live in flood zones, be it by the ocean, a river, or just a small stream.
What FEMA is saying is that the closer you are to the source of flooding, the higher your rates are going to be.
Shannon Holst is a floodplain specialist. She sees these changes as a major benefit to homeowners and business owners alike.
I do think that this is an important change because they are coming up to speed with the rest of the private market.
And we also have this area here.
Back in Provincetown, building inspector Ann Howard is working almost daily on flood plans.
And it's paying off. I got to tell you, I'm exhausted still. It's a lot of work. It's an awful lot of work.
Efforts to manage climate change here have been decades in the making. Hard work that's paying off. FEMA recently dropped the entire flood risk rating for this town, meaning flood insurance rates here will drop by as much as 10%. And Howard sees this as the kind of model other cities and towns should emulate.
What we are demonstrating to FEMA by that is we are paying attention to substantial improvements, substantial damage to buildings.
Around here, they know there's no controlling the sea. Instead of ignoring the changes that are rolling in, this town is meeting the waves head on.
Everywhere we're living on borrowed time, but, you know, up against Mother Nature, you're really living again on borrowed.
In Provincetown, Massachusetts, I'm Chris Conti.
And now let's get a first check on our weather with Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines.
And we've made it to the weekend here, and partly cloudy skies are around across the Brazos Valley. We may see a couple of thunderstorms as we push into the evening as well, moving in from the east. So 94 feeling like 103. It's hot. And the winds are calm. That doesn't help things out at all here across the area. As we check out what we're tracking, thunderstorms to the east of us may track closer to Bryan College Station as we push through the evening hours. So a chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms will be possible. A little gusty wind and lightning action, but after sunset, everything will die out. And you can see there's less activity across the area today, and I think that will continue into tomorrow as rain chances dive even lower, less than 20%, but it may start to go back up as we head into early next week. So here's your future track showing a few isolated thunderstorms this evening, but by 10 o'clock, things will be quieting down. Then we make it into Saturday morning, partly cloudy skies. During the afternoon, you can see a couple of little pop-up storms, but I think rain chances less than 20%. Most of it's going to be hot and humid tomorrow, so get ready for that. And then as we move into Sunday, we will have a chance for maybe a few thunderstorms late in the day, but I think most of Sunday is going to be dry here across the area. So tonight, temperatures will be dipping down into the mid to upper 70s. We'll go 77 for Bryan College Station, 75 Madisonville, and 75 in Cameron. Then tomorrow, highs will make it up into the mid to upper 90s, but again, it's going to feel like it's well over 100 with the humidity, so make sure you're staying hydrated, and the UV index will be high, so wear plenty of sunscreen if you'll be out and about. And checking out that forecast, we will be seeing temperatures into the middle 90s Saturday into Sunday, an isolated storm threat Sunday, but going up to 40% Monday and Tuesday as the front lies down across the area, so some scattered showers and storms, and we may see some of that continue for most of next week.
Israel is now getting people 60 and older a third dose of the COVID vaccine to improve immunity. The decision comes amid rising infections caused by the Delta variant. Earlier this month, Israeli health officials said protection against severe disease was around 93% 6 months after vaccination. Pfizer reported it at 97%. Now, no U.S. or health group has approved booster shots just yet. Meanwhile, West Virginia will start checking immunity levels of older vaccinated residents. The state was one of the first to jump ahead early in vaccinating people in long-term care facilities. Now health experts want to know how protected those in nursing homes are. Last month, about 12% of COVID deaths in the state were among fully vaccinated people. Concerning possible connections between COVID and dementia. One Argentina study suggests the virus can have similar impacts on the brain as Alzheimer's. Now, it found changes can last at least 6 months in thinking and memory in older adults who recovered from the virus. In a separate study of New Yorkers, Alzheimer's-related proteins were found in the blood. Experts say more research is needed before drawing any conclusions. Let's turn to the news feed with some promising news for those who are looking for work, because wages rose at a healthy pace in the last 3 months leading up to July. According to the Labor Department, companies are trying to fill millions of available positions. Now, inflation is a big concern, especially with what you're buying online. Adobe says inflation is responsible for $1 of every $5 spent online, and Adobe also thinks that 2021 will be online shopping's first ever $1 trillion year in the United States. Now, if you want to catch a Broadway show, you better get vaccinated. Theater owners and operators have decided it will be a requirement. You also have to wear a mask during the show. Broadway is set to reopen for the first time in more than 16 months. All right, you'll want to take a picture of your screen right here, because it is a list of all the brands of dog food recently part of a voluntary recall. The pet food company Sunshine Mills issued the recall as a precautionary measure. They say there may be elevated levels of a toxin produced by mold in the food. Food was sold nationwide under various sizes and lot numbers. The FDA website has all the details on that. The food can be returned for a full refund. People who fell victim to debt relief schemes are getting some money back. The Federal Trade Commission settled with companies that made false promises of helping people reduce interest rates on credit card debt in exchange for a fee. The victims also had money withdrawn from their bank accounts. The FTC is mailing nearly 8,000 refund checks, each for almost $300. The pandemic has made it even more challenging for people already dealing with mental health conditions like depression or anxiety. Houses of worship recognize this and are becoming a place that more people can turn to for mental health support.
We can't cure mental illness. We can't make schizophrenia go away. We can't make anxiety disappear. God has graced therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists with the abilities to do that. But what we can do as ministers is be with them, love with them, support them, and allow them to be open about their struggles.
Simply beginning to talk about mental health and how we can love and support and care for one another, and destigmatizing it in the ways that unfortunately we had in the past has really opened up conversation quite a bit.
Both religious leaders acknowledge historically, faith communities have not done a good job of connecting with people living with mental illness or their families. Reverend Dan Milford started a mental health ministry at his church, Covenant Presbyterian in San Antonio, more than 5 years ago. It includes a moment for mental health every Sunday when they educate the congregation about mental health issues. During the pandemic, they've trained companions to pair with people in the church who are considered at risk. The Presbyterian Mental Health Network has put out a guide on ways to care for our mental health during the pandemic.
We know that mental health resources are harder to come by in rural areas, in inner city areas. People of color often have less access.
We think a mental health ministry should be as common in a parish as youth ministry, as grief support ministry, as prison support ministry. It should be just one of those ministries that's offered every place, because mental health is thankfully becoming better understood.
Deacon Ed Schoner is trying to make that happen through his work with the Association of Catholic Mental Health Ministers. Now, the work is personal to him. His daughter had bipolar disorder and she died by suicide in 2016. Now, he says at the time the church was the last place that he thought to go to talk about mental health concerns. He says currently only about 10 to 15% of dioceses across the country have a mental health ministry. Now, you can find more information at catholicmhm.org. You can find additional resources from the Presbyterian Mental Health Network at pmhn.org.
Here are some of the stories that we're working on coming up for tonight at 6. COVID-19 cases are back on the rise, and Brazos Valley ERs are starting to fill up. What you need to know before you go. Plus, we'll have the very latest on the bipartisan infrastructure bill working its way through Congress. These stories and much more coming up on KRHD News at 6. World News Tonight is just ahead, and we're back on the air in 30 minutes for 25 News at 6. Until then, have a good evening.